You don't need another motivational quote. You don't need more hype or louder music or someone to coddle you while you drift through life half awake. What you need, what every man and woman must come to grips with, is resolve. A holy, burning resolve to finish what you start. Because in the end, it's not talent that matters. It's not passion. It's not opportunity. It's whether you have the spiritual backbone to see a thing through to the end. The world is full of dreamers, talkers, starters, but heaven takes note of the finishers, and that's what this is about. An unrelenting pursuit, not fueled by emotion, but by conviction. You will finish because the God who called you is worthy of it, and because anything less is compromise. You don't need more motivation. What you need is resolve. A hard, immovable, steel-like resolve, not the kind that comes from a fleeting burst of energy after a motivational video, but the kind that is carved out in the furnace of self, denial, and forged by a fear of wasting your life. Let's speak plainly. Most people never finish what they start because they never truly decide. They dabble, they try, they experiment, but they never commit. The kind of commitment I'm talking about doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't say, I'll keep going if it's convenient, or I'll finish as long as I see results. No, this kind of resolve says, even if it costs me everything, I will not quit. We live in a generation that has been coddled by comfort. We start a thing, and the moment resistance appears, we question the whole journey. Maybe this wasn't meant to be. Maybe this isn't my calling. Maybe God is closing the door. No. Maybe He's testing your spine. Maybe He's looking at the depth of your conviction and asking, will you trust me when it's hard? Will you move forward when there's no applause, no reward, no recognition? Don't you understand? If you start something and you believe it's worthy, then you must finish it. Not because of the outcome, but because of the call. You don't start for results. You don't pursue to be seen. You press on because you have resolved in your heart that finishing matters. That finishing honors the God who gave you the strength to begin. I am convinced that the difference between the ones who rise and the ones who fade away isn't gifting, it's grit. It's that internal, holy fire that refuses to die. It's what makes a man wake up every day with tired eyes and sore limbs and still get on his knees to pray, still open the Word, still press into his assignment, because quitting isn't on the table. The bridge has been burned, the retreat has been cut off, and you can hear the voice of the world saying, take it easy. Don't be so intense. You're doing too much. But let me tell you something. Every inch of progress in this world has come by someone who refused to take it easy. Every mission finished, every mountain conquered, every soul saved, it happened because someone said, this is going to be finished no matter what it takes. You may feel like you're weak. You may feel like you don't have what it takes. But let me ask you this. Did God start something in you? Did He stir your heart to begin that work? That ministry, that discipline, that transformation? Then it's not about whether you feel strong. It's about whether you will obey, because He gives grace to the obedient, not to the clever. He gives strength to the submitted, not to the talented. Make no mistake, there will be a cost. There will be nights when you don't want to keep going, when your mind screams for escape, when your body says, not today. But the one who is resolved answers, I made a covenant with this call. I made a decision in the light that I will not change in the dark. There is a kind of resolve that comes from looking eternity in the eye, from knowing that life is short and days are slipping by like sand through the fingers. You don't have time to start and stop, to begin and quit, to wander and wish. You were not called to be a drifter. You were called to finish what was set before you. The Apostle Paul didn't say, I tried. He didn't say, I gave it a shot. He said, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. That is the language of resolve. That is the heart of a finisher. And if you want that testimony at the end of your life, you must live with that urgency now. Not next month, not next year. Now, so decide, right here, right now, not with emotion, but with conviction. That from this point forward, what you start, you will finish. Not because you're strong, but because your God is faithful, and you will match His faithfulness with obedience. You will meet His calling with endurance. You will meet His promises with resolve. Let the world call it extreme. Let the soft-hearted call it too much. But let your life declare that what God begins in you will not die halfway. Because you refuse to back down, you refuse to let apathy win, you refuse to give up the ground God gave you. This is your battle cry. I will finish what I started, not by might, not by power, but by the Spirit of the Lord. That's resolve. That's unrelenting pursuit. And that's what changes the world. The greatest enemy you will ever face is not out there. It's not the critic. It's not the economy. It's not your lack of connections or your upbringing or the people who didn't support you. No, the most dangerous and persistent enemy you will face is the one that stares back at you in the mirror. It's the voice inside your own soul that whispers compromise, that justifies laziness, that nurtures fear. That enemy is you. And if you do not conquer it, it will conquer you. We love to blame. We love to externalize our failures. I couldn't finish because the situation changed. I didn't have the resources. They didn't help me. But the truth is, what stopped you was not the outside resistance. It was the lack of an inner resolve, the softness of your will, the absence of spiritual violence against your flesh. And until you deal with that, nothing will change. You must come to a point where you realize that the battlefield is internal, that your excuses, though they sound reasonable, are nothing more than chains forged by your own unwillingness to endure pain. Fear is not just a feeling. It's an idol when you let it rule your decisions. Laziness is not just tiredness. It's rebellion when you let it silence the voice of God telling you to move forward. God did not call you to negotiate with your flesh. He called you to crucify it, and crucifixion is not comfortable. It is not a slow self-help process. It is death. It is the daily dying to everything inside you that screams, I can't. I'm tired. This is too much. The unrelenting pursuit of finishing what you start begins with the unrelenting refusal to let your flesh dictate your direction. So many of you begin well. You feel the fire in the beginning. You catch a glimpse of vision, and for a moment your heart burns. But then the fire dies down, and with it your commitment. Why? Because you never declared war on the part of you that wants ease more than purpose. You never recognized that this journey is going to be a fight, and not against people, but against the cowardice hiding inside your own heart. Let me ask you plainly, what are you feeding inside of you? Are you feeding your comfort or your calling? Are you entertaining voices that pamper your apathy? Do you constantly justify your inaction because it's been a hard season? What makes you think that calling exempts you from suffering? If anything, a divine calling is a call to die daily. You want to finish what you start, then you must get violent with every part of you that resists obedience. You can't pray your way out of discipline. You can't fast your way out of consistency. At some point, you've got to stand up and say, enough of this war within. I will not be ruled by my mood. I will not be led by my laziness. I will not be crippled by my fear. I am not my feelings. I am not my failures. I am a servant of the Most High God, and I will finish the work He gave me to do. Do you think Jesus felt like going to the cross? Do you think Paul always felt inspired to press on through beatings and prisons and betrayals? No, but they were not ruled by how they felt. They were ruled by the will of God. And that's what it comes down to. Will you obey God or obey your own weakness? Will you believe in His strength or surrender to your insecurity? Your victory will not come by waiting for motivation. It will come by choosing truth over emotion, obedience over comfort, and endurance over ease. Your flesh will scream. Let it scream. Your fears will rise. Let them rise and then walk through them, because every step you take forward is a blow against the enemy within. Every day you persist is another chain shattered. Every moment you don't quit is a declaration that your flesh no longer has the final word. This is the reality. If you do not master yourself, you will always be a slave to distraction, a slave to procrastination, a slave to emotional swings. You cannot finish anything if you are not first free from yourself, and the only path to that freedom is war, a holy war, a war that begins when you look that inner coward in the eye and say, "You will no longer decide who I become." Don't wait until you feel brave to start fighting. Courage is not a feeling. It is obedience in the face of fear. Discipline is not natural. It is supernatural grace expressed through your daily surrender. And finishing isn't for the naturally strong. It's for those who are willing to fight themselves long enough to see the fruit of faithfulness. So rise up, not with arrogance, but with holy desperation. Cry out to God, yes, but also get up and move your feet. Faith without works is dead, and works without discipline are just noise. You are not too weak. You are not too far gone, but you must make war against your comfort, war against your fears, war against the lazy, passive self that wants you to die with your potential still buried inside you. The greatest enemy is not what's around you, it's what's inside you. And the greatest victory is not the applause of men, but the mastery of your own soul under the lordship of Christ. Finish what you start, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary, because God is worthy, because your generation needs to see that it's possible, because eternity remembers those who endure. What you begin matters, because it reflects your integrity. It reflects the kind of person you are when no one is watching. You may think that walking away from something you started is a minor thing, that it's harmless, that life just got in the way. But every unfinished task, every abandoned mission, every project you let rot in silence, each one is a stone laid in the foundation of who you're becoming. Not just in the eyes of others, but in the eyes of God. When you put your hand to the plow and then walk away, you don't just leave a task undone. You leave a testimony behind, a half-built wall, a half-dug well. And do you know what the world says when they see it? "I couldn't finish. She didn't have what it took." The Word of God speaks directly to this. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it? Because if he lays the foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it will mock him. You may not hear the mockery in words, but you'll feel it in the way people stop trusting your commitments, in the way your own soul begins to accept mediocrity as normal. That's what happens when you don't finish. Your conscience hardens, your word weakens, your sense of purpose begins to blur. And worst of all, you stop believing that you can finish anything at all. This is not about perfection. This is not about performance for the sake of applause. This is about honor. It is about the sacredness of work. It's about what it means to be a man or woman of your word. You say you're going to do something, then you do it. You start something that God has placed in your heart, then you stay with it through drought, through delay, through discouragement, because finishing honors the giver of the assignment. We live in a culture that celebrates starting. Everyone's excited about the launch, about new beginnings, about the fire of day one. But let me tell you, starting is common. Finishing is rare. Starting is emotional. Finishing is sacrificial. It's costly. It requires long nights, unseen faithfulness, and discipline when the excitement dies. And it will die. The energy, the praise, the novelty, it all fades. And when it does, the only thing that will carry you forward is the weight of your word and the conviction of your integrity. You may think people aren't watching, that your unfinished project doesn't matter, that if you quietly let go of that commitment, it'll just fade away. But someone is watching. Your children are watching. Your peers are watching. The younger ones who once looked up to you are watching. And above all, God is watching, not as a harsh judge with a checklist, but as a holy Father who entrusted you with a stewardship and is looking for faithfulness, not flash. What if Noah had stopped halfway through the ark? What if Nehemiah had quit when the opposition grew fierce? What if Paul had turned around on the second missionary journey because he was tired of the beatings? What if Jesus had come to earth, healed a few people, given a few sermons, and said, "It's enough. I don't want the cross"? Would we be saved today? We serve a God who finishes. He finishes what he starts. He who began a good work and you will bring it to completion. That's his nature. So how can we, called by his name, filled with his Spirit, live as quitters, as half-hearted builders, as men and women whose lives are a trail of unfinished callings and broken vows? No, that cannot be your story. Not if you've seen the worth of the one who called you. Not if you understand that everything you do, everything is spiritual. How you handle your work, your commitments, your word, your goals, it's all worship. God is not honored by good intentions. He is honored by faithful completion. The weight of responsibility is real, and it should press on you, not to crush you, but to call you upward, to remind you that what you say matters, that what you do carries eternal weight, that when you give your word, when you start the work, you are standing before God and saying, "I will carry this through." So don't let your legacy be a series of abandoned fields and half-built towers. Let your life declare something better. Let it say, "Here was a person who, by the grace of God, finished." Not because it was easy, not because they were the strongest or smartest, but because they feared the Lord enough to stay the course. And let that weight, the weight of your word, the weight of your calling, the weight of your responsibility, be the very thing that drives you forward when everything in you wants to stop. That weight is not your burden. It is your honor. It is what separates the ones who make a mark from the ones who vanish into excuses. Because what you start matters, and how you finish matters even more. Discipline is not legalism. Let's make that clear from the beginning. We have confused the two for far too long. Discipline is not about trying to earn your worth. It's about living in obedience to the one who already deemed you worthy enough to be called. It is not about striving to gain God's love, but responding rightly to that love with a life that reflects commitment, focus, and consistency. Obedience is not optional. The modern believer has somehow come to think that God is simply pleased with desire, that good intentions, spiritual feelings, or big dreams are enough. But Scripture is not vague on this point. God is pleased by obedience. To obey is better than sacrifice, the Word says. That means God isn't impressed with your emotional highs, your lofty words, or your long prayers if you are not doing what He told you to do. If you've been called to finish something, then quitting halfway is not just a failure of effort. It is a failure of obedience. Too often we make discipline a personality issue. I'm just not wired that way. I'm more spontaneous. I struggle with routines. But following Christ is not about personality, it's about submission. You don't obey because you feel like it. You obey because He's Lord. And if He's Lord, then His call is not up for debate. Whether it's a ministry, a marriage, a mission, or a mundane task, if God has placed it in your hands, your job is to carry it through, not just when it's exciting, but especially when it's hard. Discipline is war against the flesh, and the flesh will resist it at every turn. Your body will cry out for comfort. Your mind will look for a way out. Your emotions will betray you, telling you that quitting is wisdom. But hear me, your emotions are not your master. Your calling is not dependent on your energy levels or your mood. You don't finish something because you feel inspired. You finish it because God told you to start it. We have raised a generation of Christians who believe that passion equals faithfulness, that if the fire is gone, the assignment must be over. But real discipleship doesn't live on emotion. It lives on decision. It is day in, day out obedience to Christ, no matter the circumstances. It is the discipline of showing up when it would be easier to walk away. It is the discipline of finishing the race, even if you're limping toward the finish line. Do you understand what's at stake? Every assignment God gives you, every one has weight beyond what you can see. There are souls on the other side of your obedience. There are testimonies waiting to be birthed from your perseverance. There is a future that will never be reached if you keep letting discipline fall to the ground like it doesn't matter. God did not call you to start well. He called you to endure, to run the race, to finish the work, and finishing will cost you. It will cost your comfort. It will cost your sleep. It will cost your ego, your excuses, your self-pity, and your constant need for affirmation. But that cost is nothing compared to the reward of hearing the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant," not well intended, not well thought of, well done. That's the language of discipline. That's the outcome of a life shaped by obedience. Some people spend their whole lives praying for doors to open that would already be open if they had just finished what they started. God is not obligated to multiply disobedience. You want to see favor, you want to see breakthrough, then prove yourself faithful in what He already gave you. Finish the first thing before asking for the next. Too many people abandon one calling looking for another, not realizing that God doesn't bless spiritual vagabonds. He blesses the faithful. You think the work doesn't matter because no one sees it. You think the quiet hours of labor, the behind-the-scenes discipline, the daily decisions to stay when you want to go, you think they don't count. But they do. Every one of them counts. Because discipline is the silent evidence of devotion. When you obey in the dark, God rewards in the light. When you finish what He told you to begin, you become a vessel He can trust. Discipline is not chains, it's freedom. The freedom to be consistent in a world addicted to chaos. The freedom to rise when others fall. The freedom to be trusted with weight, with responsibility, with legacy. You cannot build anything lasting without it. Not a ministry, not a family, not a business, not a life. Because what begins in passion must be sustained by discipline, or it will collapse under pressure. So enough of the excuses. Enough of the false humility that says, "I'm just not strong enough." If you have the Spirit of God, you have power, love, and a sound mind. That means you have all you need to obey. You have all you need to finish. You just need to decide that quitting is not an option. That halfway is not good enough. That if God called you, then He expects you to stay until He says it's over. You don't get to set the finish line. You don't get to determine the terms. Your role is obedience. And discipline is how obedience is lived out daily, quietly, faithfully, without applause, until the job is done, until the race is won, until the King is glorified through the work of your hands. Pain is not the enemy. Discomfort is not the enemy. Delay, disappointment, rejection, even failure, none of these are your enemies. They are your teachers. They are your companions on the narrow road that leads to finishing well. We live in a culture that does everything possible to avoid pain. But in the kingdom of God, suffering is not a detour, it is the path. If you're going to finish what you start, you must learn to endure hardship, not escape it. There is no glory without suffering. There is no resurrection without crucifixion. And there is no completion without endurance. You will not always feel strong. You will not always feel inspired, but you can always obey. And obedience through pain is the clearest evidence of a heart that fears God more than it fears discomfort. Endurance is not passive. It is not sitting back and waiting for things to get better. Endurance is active. It is gritty. It is violent in its resistance to apathy and self-pity. It is a refusal to quit even when every part of you is screaming to stop. Do you think the saints of old finished their race because they had it easy? No. They endured beatings, rejection, imprisonment, loss, and they kept going. Why? Because they saw something greater than their suffering. They understood that the pain had purpose, that it was shaping them, purifying them, making them worthy of the work they had been given. You must come to terms with the fact that difficulty is not a sign you're on the wrong path. In fact, it might be the clearest sign you're exactly where you need to be. The enemy doesn't resist the lukewarm. He doesn't oppose the distracted, but he will rage against anyone determined to finish. So if the road gets harder, don't be surprised. Don't be discouraged. Let it be confirmation. Let it be fuel. The pressure you feel, that's not just opposition, it's training. It's God forging something in you that you couldn't develop in comfort. Muscles grow under resistance. Faith grows in the storm. Maturity is born in the fire. You will never become who God called you to be if you run from pain every time it shows up. You will never finish your assignment if every delay makes you question the mission. Stop looking for a way out and start asking for strength to go through. That's what Jesus did. In Gethsemane, he didn't say, "I'm done." He said, "Not my will, but yours be done." And then he endured the cross, despising the shame, for the joy set before him. That's what it takes. Eyes that can see beyond the moment. A heart anchored in eternity. A will that bows to the Father even when the body is broken. Endurance is not glamorous. It doesn't post well on social media. It doesn't look heroic. Most of the time it looks like simple, hidden faithfulness. It looks like showing up when no one notices. Like staying when it would be easier to walk away. Like working when you feel empty. Like choosing to believe when every voice says quit. That is the kind of endurance that finishes. Not dramatic, not loud, just consistent, steadfast, unshakable. And listen to me, you do not endure in your own strength. This is not about human grit or natural toughness. This is about divine grace. It is Christ in you, the hope of glory, that gives you the ability to keep going. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. So do not say, "I can't." If God lives in you, you can. You must. The race isn't about speed, it's about faithfulness. It's not about being the strongest, it's about refusing to quit. Endurance means you stop romanticizing escape. Stop fantasizing about an easier road. Stop bargaining with God for a shortcut. There is no shortcut to glory. There is no painless path to purpose. The narrow road is narrow for a reason, and those who walk it must walk it with eyes fixed on Jesus, not on comfort, not on applause, not even on visible success, but on Him. And let me remind you, your endurance is not just for you. It is for the people watching you. It is for the generation coming behind you. It is for the glory of the God who called you. There is someone who will believe they can make it because you chose not to quit. There is someone who will finish their race because you showed them how. That's how legacy is born. Not in the loud moments, but in the painful ones, the hidden ones, the moments where everything in you wants to give up, but grace holds you fast. So embrace the pain. Don't chase it, but don't run from it either. Let it do its work. Let it refine you. Let it drive you deeper into the presence of God. He is not absent in the trial. He is near. He is not punishing you. He is preparing you. And when you endure, when you stand firm, when you finish, He is glorified. Because in the end, the prize is not just the finished work. The prize is becoming the kind of person who finishes. The prize is standing before your King, empty of excuses, full of scars, but still standing, still faithful, still burning. Still His. You do not finish for the applause of men. You do not endure for recognition. You do not carry the weight of your calling so others can praise your strength. You finish because He is worthy, because the one who called you, the one who saved you, the one who bled and died for you, He is worthy of your finish, worthy of your last breath, worthy of your obedience even when no one sees, worthy of your life poured out like a drink offering, spent completely for His glory. We have lost the fear of God. We have made everything about ourselves, our comfort, our dreams, our image, even ministry, even purpose has become self-focused. But you were not created to finish for your brand. You were not created to start strong and fizzle out when the light fades. You were created to glorify the one who called you. You were made to lift His name, not yours. And the greatest way you glorify Him is by enduring to the end with unwavering obedience. Every act of faithfulness echoes in eternity. Every completed task, every race finished, every assignment fulfilled, it speaks of Him. It says He is worth it. The world may never applaud you. Your name may never be known. But heaven sees. The Father sees. And His approval is worth more than 10,000 crowds chanting your name. Because when you stand before Him, it will not matter how many followers you had, how many people noticed your efforts, or how celebrated you were. The only thing that will matter is this: did you finish what He gave you? The cry of your heart must be, "Worthy is the Lamb," not just when you worship, not just in song, but in how you live, in how you work, in how you press on when it's hard, in how you refuse to let go of the plow, no matter how deep the soil or how hot the sun. Every time you choose to stay when quitting seems easier, you are declaring His worth. Every time you deny your flesh and take one more step, you are saying to heaven and hell, He is worthy. The Apostle Paul understood this. He said, "I consider my life worth nothing to me, if only I may finish the race and complete the task the Lord Jesus has given me." Do you hear that? My life means nothing if I don't finish. What was His motivation? Was it earthly glory? No. It was the joy of hearing His Master say, "Well done." Paul had his eyes set on a crown that does not perish, a reward that this world cannot offer. His focus was not on results, but on faithfulness. And that must be your focus too. You finish for the glory of God, because His name is at stake in your life. When you walk away from what He gave you, you do not just shame yourself, you bring dishonor to the one who entrusted you. When you say, "I can't," in the face of His call, you're saying more about Him than you are about yourself. You're saying He is not strong enough to sustain you, not wise enough to guide you, not faithful enough to keep His promises. But He is more than enough. He is able. And He is glorified when you lean on Him and keep going. There is a cloud of witnesses watching. Men and women who endured to the end, who were tortured, sawn in two, imprisoned, exiled, all because they believed that He was worthy. They were not perfect. They were not always fearless, but they finished. And now they cheer you on, not so you can become great, but so He might be glorified through you. You finish what you start because it is a matter of worship. The secular and the sacred do not exist separately in the life of the believer. Everything you do is either honoring or dishonoring to God. How you speak, how you follow through, how you live, it all testifies to who your God is. When you finish well, even if no one notices, you offer Him a fragrant offering of worship. It rises to His throne as proof that you count Him worthy. And yes, it is hard. There are times when you will feel broken, forgotten, even abandoned, but He sees. And He will not forget your labor of love. He will not ignore your suffering. He will reward every sacrifice. You may never receive thanks here, but He will thank you. The one with fire in His eyes will look into your soul and say, "You were faithful. You did not quit, you finished. What else could you possibly want? So settle it in your heart now, I will not quit. I will not stop. I will not walk away because he did not walk away from me. He endured the cross, he finished his race. And because of that, I will finish mine. Not for applause, not for comfort, but for glory, his glory. Let your finish declare his greatness. Let your endurance preach louder than your words. Let your perseverance say to the world, my God is worthy, because he is, forever and always. And if he has called you, if he has trusted you with a task, then finishing it is not just your duty, it is your highest act of worship.